welcome to Cansanity. Today we're going to make blueberry jam with gin and cinnamon. Now, I went out to one of my favorite blueberry farms and I picked 25 pounds of blueberries, but it didn't take very long to pick them because domestic blueberries are the size of grapes. And so I think it only took me an hour and a half to pick 25 pounds of blueberries. And I saved these blueberries to make my blueberry jam. Now I find that I'm making blueberry jam out of domestic blueberries in particular. When you cook them, they do lose a lot of their flavor. And so the reason being is that blueberries have a compound called terpene, and when you cook it, that breaks down, and so it loses a bit of their flavor. And so to add that flavor back to your jam, at the end of your cooking, once you get to the point where it has the right gel point, then you want to add a flavor that is high in terpene, and so that's why we're adding the gin. Gin is high in terpene. Now, if you didn't want to use alcohol, you can use lime. Lime is also high in terpene, so you can use lime juice. But today we're going to use gin because it's one of my favorite flavorings. So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about the other ingredients that are going to go into this jam. So you're going to use 2.5 pounds of blueberries. You're going to use 1.5 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons of gin, 1 cinnamon stick that's 3 inches long, and 3 cups of granulated sugar, and 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. And to get the cook started, you want to first cook the blueberries with 1/2 cup of water and then mash them. Now, I grow gooseberries, and one of the reasons why I grow gooseberries is because I like to make gooseberry pectin stock. And so instead of using water, I'm going to use my gooseberry pectin stock because that's going to add a thickness to the jam that I like, and it also adds a little bit of flavor, another flavor to the jam. Now, but if you don't have gooseberries and you can't make gooseberry pectin stock, then you can just use water. So I think we're ready to get started on the cook, and so let's get started. Okay, so I have my 2.5 pounds of blueberries in with my 1/2 cup of gooseberry pectin stock, and you could use 1/2 cup of water if you don't have the pectin stock. And I'm just heating this on medium, and you want to heat it until the berries start to break apart. Now, I like to use a masher and just give it a mash, and you can see that the blueberries are starting to break down because there's a little bit of liquid, but I'm not there yet. So I'll put the lid on and I'll keep this cooking for just a couple minutes, just until the berries start to burst away from their skins. Okay, so I just cooked that for about 3 minutes. Now what I like to do is I like to then use a food mill to just run the mixture through and just get out the skins. You can leave the skins in if you want to have that in your jam, but I have some friends that I give this blueberry jam to that actually like it without the skins, so that's how I make it. So I just, you pick up a food mill at Canadian Tire or one of your favorite kitchen stores. They have different blades. This is a coarse blade, and then they have blades that are a finer mesh. And I use my food mill for so many things. I use it for making apple butter, applesauce. I use it for making tomato sauce, pasta sauce, for canning. So if you're going to get really into canning this year, I would recommend picking up a food mill. So to use a food mill, then you're just going to put your mixture on top like that, and then you're just going to run it through. And what it does is it just kind of separates the peel from the pulp, and then it leaves the peel inside this part of the container. And then all you get through to your dish is your pulp and your juice. And so you can fill it up. This is not a large batch of jam that I'm making, and so it won't take very long for me to just put this through the food mill. And now I only want to exclude the pulp, or sorry, the peel. And so you want to really make sure that you run it through. It'll probably take you a good 10 minutes to do this, but you know, you really only want to leave behind the peel. And so I'm just going to run that through the food mill, and then we'll pick up with the recipe after that. Okay, so if you look inside the food mill, there's not a lot left. That's just some of the peel. I'm sure some of it will have been grated and will come through fine, but so there is some texture to the jam, but it just doesn't have big chunks of the peel. So don't be surprised when you run it through your food mill that you don't have a lot of peel in your food mill. So then what you're going to do is you're going to return that to your pot. And I'm just going to actually take my clean pot here, and you're going to return that puree to the pot, and then you're going to add your lemon juice, your cinnamon, and you want to leave it whole because you're going to fish that out afterwards. So just pop that in, and then you're going to add your sugar. And we're going to put that back on the stove. We're going to cook it for 5 to 8 minutes until we get the right gel point. And I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so I have my 2.5 pounds of blueberries and my half a cup of gooseberry pectin stock and my 1 tablespoon of lemon juice in the pot, and I have it on medium high, and it's been cooking already for 6 minutes, and I always set my timer for about 10 minutes, and then I just check it after 5 and see how it's doing. And so the way I check it is I just take a spoon and I just run it through, and then I watch the drip, and when I find that the drip really hangs on, then that's when my gel point has been reached. Not quite there yet, but in the meantime what I can do is I can skim off some of this foam at the top. You can either do this at the end after you shut off your element, or it's very obvious where the foam is here, so I'm going to just skim that off and take that out now. So I have about 3 minutes left on my timer. And now when you're making this jam, make sure that you are close by. You want to make sure that you stir it down. If it starts to really rise high, you can see you want it to be at a full rolling boil, and you see that it at one point went as high as this part of the pot, and this is an 8-liter pot. But I always tell people don't go far from your stove, because you wouldn't want that to boil over. That would be really a real stinky mess with the sugar burning on your stove. So I have about 2 minutes now left. So now anytime this jam will have reached its gel point. So I'll check it frequently now and see where I'm at. And so it's getting close, because you see that I have a drip that is just hanging there. And so I could shut that off anytime now, and I'm going to let it go for just another minute, because this jam usually sets up for me at about 9 minutes. It can be earlier, but it's usually about 9 minutes. And I start that timer as soon as I start to see some of the jam boiling. And but you do want it to reach a full rolling boil, and it has. And so I think that this jam is done. It's been boiling now away for 9 minutes, which is usually when I take it off. And I see that those drips are really hanging in there now. And you know, if you let this boil longer, it's going to be even thicker. But you know, I like my jam really, I don't mind if it's a little bit runny, because I like to be able to easily spread it on my toast in the morning. And so that, you can also see all the sheeting on the back of the spoon, so that's an indicator also that this has reached its gel point. So I'm going to shut the stove off now, and we're going to move over to fill the jars. Okay, you can see that it's already, even after I shut off the heat, it's already starting to gel on the top. That's a good sign. But now I have to add my terpene, my gin. So I have my 1.5 tablespoons of gin. And if you're not going to use alcohol, this is when you would add your lime juice. And so, but I'm using gin, so you add that and then you stir that in. And now we're ready to fill the jars. Okay, so my jars and the rings were in the oven at 225 Fahrenheit for 10 minutes. So they're sterilized, and then I had my ladle and my funnel in boiling hot water here to sterilize them. So now we're just going to go ahead and fill the jars. And I see that there's already a bit of a gel happen on the top. There's a little bit of a skin forming, and so that's good. And so I'm just going to fill these, and you're going to fill this to within a quarter inch of the top of the jars. And now I already took off the foam, and so I don't have to do that. Now if you find that after you fill your jars that you have a little bit of foam floating at the top, you can use a spoon to scoop out the that foam. I like to usually put a freshly washed spoon in with my boiling hot water, and so that it's there in case I need to use it. But I knew that I had taken out all the foam, and so I wasn't going to need it this time. So I should get 4 or 5 jars of jam out of this batch. And that's what it looks like I'm going to get. So I'm just going to finish filling the jars, and then we'll talk a little bit about putting them in the pot when I get to that point. Okay, so I'm just checking to make sure that I have a 1/4 inch headspace and that all looks good. And then I just dampened a paper towel with hot boiling water and just wiped all the edges clean. And now this jar isn't full, so that's going to be our fresh jam. I'll put a lid on that, and then I'll just put that in the fridge. And so it looks like I'm getting 4 jars, and they all look like they're about a 1/4 inch. And this is important because if you're if you have less or if you have more space, your jars might not seal. So make sure that you have a 1/4 inch headspace. So now I'm going to add my snap lids to my hot boiling water. I'm just going to let that sit for just a couple seconds, and then I'm going to use my magnetic wand to take the lids out, and then I'm going to put them on and just touch the center just to make sure that they're on the jar. And then I'm going to put my rings on, and then we're going to put them in the boiling water canner. And I have that already at a full rolling boil, so then it won't take very long to process the jam. So when you put your rings on, just give it a spin and then just fingertip tight. And then don't tighten them too much, because if you tighten them too much, the jar could break open and the pressure would become too much, and then the jar might bust in your canner. Or it might not break open, but then when you take it out of the canning pot, it's not going to create a vacuum and seal. And you want that vacuum and you want that seal. You want to remove all the air from the jar. And that's why you put your jam in a boiling water canner. Okay, so those are ready to go, so we'll move over to the canning pot and I'll show you how to put them in. Okay, so I'm just putting the jars in the boiling water canner, and I want to keep the jars an inch away from the side of the canning pot and an inch away from each other. Just that will have good water circulation around the jars, and then the jars will, in the boiling water canner, the air will come out of the jars, which is what you want. And so my last one in there, and you can see that this is not cooling down at all because my blueberry liquid was right smoking hot when I put it in the jars, and so it won't take but a second for that to come back to a full rolling boil. And this has to be at a full rolling boil before you set your timer for 10 minutes. And so I'm just gonna take a peek. It sounds to me like it's just, see how it's already boiling. And so now I can set my timer for 10 minutes. Okay, so my timer just went off, and so I'm just going to take the jam out, and you just lift them straight up. And I like to put my jam on a cutting board, and I just let it cool, and I let it sit on that cutting board for 24 hours before I do anything to it. And that's what you want to hear. You want to hear that pop, that snap, and that means that that jar has sealed. Don't worry about tilting the jar to get the liquid on the top off. It will just evaporate. Okay, so my jam is out of the pot. I'm still waiting for one more to seal, and if it doesn't seal, that's okay. We'll just heat that up. And I just wanted to show you what the consistency is of the jam. It's set really nice. And now I have to tell you that this jam tastes like wild blueberry jam. And the reason why it tastes like wild blueberry jam is because you added the gin, or because I added the gin, which has the terpenes in it. And so it will have that flavor, that really rich blueberry flavor. And so I hope you have a chance to try out this recipe this year and make some for yourself. Now, there's a lot of videos on Cansanity.com, and so if you're interested in watching some more videos, check them out on the video section, or go to the YouTube channel for Cansanity and just watch the videos there. We're starting to get a lot of produce out of our garden, big zucchinis, and so I'm going to do a lot of videos showing you how to cook with the produce out of your garden. And there's 3 recipes on the website right now telling you how to bake with zucchini, and one of them is a fantastic chocolate zucchini cake. And so we're moving on into pickle season, and so there will be a lot of recipes coming onto the website which will show you how to pickle some of your vegetables. But there will still be a lot of jams and jellies as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Have a great day.